Today I'm doing a video on how to create your own practice routine for Melee. I was going to make a video on a practice routine for Fox, but it's sort of been done to death, and it's more important that you learn how to practice your own skill set anyways, and improve the things that you don't actually know how to do. Unfortunately for some of you that don't like watching your own VODs because you think it's boring, this is going to require a little bit of that. You don't have to get too in-depth with it, but if you want to get better at the game, you're just going to have to do that at some point. So, you know, if it makes you want to click off the video when you hear that, it's time to just bite the bullet and watch your own VODs, because even though you don't want to, you're just going to have to. That's the meta now. You can't just get better through osmosis anymore. So, when you select a VOD to watch, I think the ideal thing to do would be to select one where you played poorly, with a small caveat that don't pick one where you're under the influence of drugs or alcohol and you play exceptionally terrible, or, you know, just whatever extenuant circumstance. I don't know words. Is that even a word? Extenuant circumstance? I'm going to say it anyway because it sounds intelligent. It makes me feel smarter. Any extenuant circumstance that caused you to play poorly, we're going to give that the exception. We're not going to watch that. But maybe just one where you were a little bit pissed you lost. Say you play Spacies, for example, and you lost to some Marth online, and you're thinking, oh, well, this guy's only Platinum rank, and he's an idiot. That's the VOD you want to watch. One where you played bad. Not one where you played okay, or one where you were out of your mind, but bad. Because we're trying, when we improve with the practice routine, to improve the baseline first and foremost before everything else. Now, when you watch this match, there's going to be a few things that you're going to want to pay attention for. First of all, what are you messing up? For me personally, a lot of the time with my new Fox that I've been playing, the thing that I mess up is when I'm in a tense situation against someone that I really want to beat, I might, when doing this technique, the running shine into aerial, I might accidentally full hop. Or when I'm doing my multi-shines, eventually I'll go either too fast or too slow on them. Most of the time, it's too slow. So I will first check, what am I messing up? For me, it would be those things. For you, it might be something completely different, and that's why we have to create our own practice routines. You are going to need to have some prerequisite knowledge of how the game works in order to do this, so this isn't for a complete novice. This is more for a mediocre player, which is where most of my tutorials are geared anyways, and I don't think a lot of complete novices are watching this, so I'm going to assume that you know how most of the game mechanics work in order to pull this off. So, you've figured out what you're messing up. Step 2, you have to figure out how you're messing it up. Earlier, when I talked about doing the multi-shines, I mentioned that usually, like there, I'm a little bit too slow. So in my case, when I go to practice, I'll make a note in my mind, and maybe even write it down if I'm trying to create a practice routine, that I need to go faster when I'm multi-shining. That is how I'm going to fix this problem. If I go too slow like that, this time I'm going to go faster, and there I managed to hit a few. Because I thought to myself while practicing, okay, I'm going to go faster when I practice this. So that's step 2. You figure out, in what way am I messing up, and how can I address that? For example, for some people, maybe they're not holding a deep enough angle when they ledge dash. Or maybe we'll just say wave dash, because that's a little bit easier to mess up on purpose. Maybe you're learning to wave dash, and you're wave dashing like a little bit only like this. So for you, it would be, okay, I need to hold further forward when I wave dash, so I get a big, nice one like that. Whatever the case is for you, you need to figure that out. Step 3. This is a little bit more nebulous, but I think that it's also important. You're going to want to compare the video of you playing to the ideal circumstance. We're going to use as an example this time that you play Falco, and the ideal circumstance that you're watching is it's Magi destroying some other Falco player in pools. So you watched yourself play, and now you're watching Magi play. When you watch yourself play, you're thinking, man, I'm not very good at this shield pressure stuff. I don't really know what to do. Then you watch Magi play, and it's just multi-shines abound, and Magi is just crushing the other Falco by spamming multi-shine. You think to yourself, huh, I don't really know how to do that. I'm not very good with my multi-shines. I can't do that yet. Now that would be something that you could add to your practice routine. You can learn to multi-shine, because for you that would be ideal. You can apply this to anything. Let's say, for example, that you play Marth, and you're not very good at chain grabbing at 22%, because when you try to chain grab Fox, you're messing up the pivot grab a lot. But then you watch Zane play, and every time Zane just gets that pivot grab, you think to yourself, oh man, I don't even go for that, but I guess I'll start practicing it now because that's something that I want to be able to do. So that's step 3, is to take the ideal circumstance and add those things that you want to learn to your practice routine. Which brings us around to step 4, which is less of a step and more of the number 1 rule for when you're creating a practice routine. The number 1 rule for when you're practicing this game is to remember there's no Melee school. No one went to college for this and has a degree in Super Smash Brothersology, okay? So what's most important is that you're putting some sort of effort into learning something and not waiting for the perfect circumstance, the perfect thing that you need to learn. Don't be thinking to yourself, I'm not even good enough at the game yet to learn how to shield drop, and I gotta figure out what I'm supposed to do before that, but I don't know what I'm supposed to do before that, so I'm so lost and I don't know what to practice. If you think that to yourself, you're just limiting yourself, because guess what, dummy? You just thought of something that you didn't know how to do, shield dropping, and you're not practicing it. Somebody else thinks of that, and they start practicing it, they're better than you because they didn't wait for the perfect circumstance on what they should learn. That's the number 1 thing to keep in mind when you're creating a practice routine for yourself. If you're learning something, that's better than learning nothing, okay? Keep all those things in mind, and you should have a really easy time developing your own routine. Couple quick things to keep in mind. These aren't rules so much as just guidelines. I really wouldn't practice more than you're capable of doing consistently. So it's consistency over the quantity of time you practice in a single session. Don't get all overzealous and be like, I'm going to write a 3-hour-long practice routine, because the guy who's practicing for 30 minutes a day, 7 days out of the week, versus you practicing for 3 hours once in 2 weeks, that guy's getting done twice as much practice as you because he just didn't get so crazy with it and maintained his consistency. So whatever you think you're capable of doing every single day for your practice, I would kind of shrink that down just a little bit, because maybe we might have a little bit unrealistic expectations for how much we're capable of practicing. You know, when I was trying to get a lot better, I would always do 2 hours a day was what I would think. I'm going to go into this, I'm going to do 2 hours. And I tended to come out doing an hour and a half or like hour 20. So just keep that in mind. Try to make sure you're not doing any one technique for too short of an amount of time. If you have less than 30 minutes a day to practice, you know, maybe just keep it to 2 or 3 new things to learn. And then once you feel like you can do the thing, this is the next guideline. Try to remember, in this game, there are levels to being able to do things. So, for example, once against the bot, you can do this running shine. You have learned to do the running shine against the bot. Then you play against someone in a friendly. You are fucking it up constantly. Why is that the case? That's just the way it goes in this game. There's 4 levels to learning to do a technique. For example, we'll say the short hop laser. First, you learn to short hop laser against the bot. Then, you learn how to short hop laser against your friends in friendlies. You're fucking it up at first, because you've only practiced it against the bot. Eventually, you're comfortable enough to do it against your friends. Then, you reach the 3rd level, where you can finally do it in a tournament. You know, you're like, okay, well, I can do it against my friends, but when everything's on the line, I'm still messing it up. Maybe you're full hopping on accident when everything's on the line, or you accidentally get the standing laser, like that. Then, you finally reach step 4 of competency, level 4 of competency, rather, where you can do it on the biggest stage, right? So, pretend you're playing against Armada, and it's like to decide who's the greatest player of all time. If you were playing against Armada to decide who's the greatest player of all time, would you be able to moonwalk back to the ledge like that? Most people know how to moonwalk. They'll say, you ask them, can you moonwalk? They'll go, yeah, I can moonwalk. And they can. If you put them against a bot, they can moonwalk just fine. But if you put them against a real player, can they moonwalk? Yeah, maybe. Maybe they can. If you put them in a tournament, can they moonwalk? Yeah, if they're really good at it, then probably. But Could they moonwalk to the ledge in grand finals when everyone is watching them? A lot less people can do that. You're narrowing the field a lot. So try to remember that when it comes to learning tech skill as well. Don't ever think to yourself, oh, well, you know, I just have that thing down so well that I would never fuck it up and I just don't need to practice it. Because I hear noobs do that a lot. And I realize I'm getting off on a little bit of a tangent here, but I think that it's important, so I'm just going to let it fly and continue it. But this is going to be the last thing that I say. A lot of lower level players, they'll think to themselves, if you ask them, for example, go, well, you know, can you tech chase with Sheik? This is the example I've heard it the most. They go, oh, well, I can tech chase with Sheik. And then I hear that, and I'm a little bit more than dubious. Generally, I'm thinking to myself, no, you can't. And I've been vindicated about this every time. But why do these people think that they can tech chase with Sheik, and then when I check them on it, my bias and my opinion that they're not going to be able to do it is confirmed? Why am I so certain, and why do I end up being vindicated for it every time? Well, it's because people, they have a different definition of what counts as being able to do something. And they're doing a little bit of cherry picking with their abilities. So when it comes to the Sheik tech chase, a lot of people trick themselves into believing that they're capable. They say, oh, I can tech chase with Sheik. What they mean is they hit the tech chase every once in a while. But the truth is, in order for you to be able to say you know how to do a technique, you need to be able to do it often enough that it's a net benefit to your gameplay. That's when you can really say, oh yeah, I can do that. Because if every time I try to wave shine someone like this, half of the time I air dodge like that, and I end up getting grabbed out of my wave shine, then I don't really know how to do it, even though I know the inputs for the wave shine, because it's detrimenting my gameplay. You need to really, really watch yourself so that you don't fall into that trap. Make sure that you've actually mastered something well enough that it's benefiting you before you move on to the next thing. I cannot stress this enough. If you can put all those things that I just said together, and I know I put it together in a bit of a ranting fashion, but a lot of the stuff that I said, I think for some people it could be gold that they haven't heard elsewhere on the internet. I just hope someone can piece together this rant and really build their own foundation for how they're going to improve. Because I'll tell you right now, this is how I do it, and I can learn really quickly if I actually put the time into a character. Like, for example, this whole time I've been playing with Fox here, I've been using claw grip, and I did not know how to do this at all as much as recently as a few months ago, and now I'm playing a new character, and I'm Grandmaster rank online with it. So if that ain't proof that you can learn tech skill using my methods, then I don't know what is. Anyway, I'm going to cut it there. Peace.